Guys, welcome to the RVA Returners Opus 10 set review. I am joined tonight by two of the greatest detectives on the case, John Schreiner, Curtis King. Guys, say hi to everybody.
Hey.
What's going on?
Man, this is we've been waiting to do this for a while now. Opus 10 overall, I think, is a really, really good set. We've got a lot of really neat cards. So we're just going to dive into our first video in the series, and this is Fire. So, guys, we're just going to go ahead and go down the line. We're going to start with our first card, Ignacio. Now, he's a 5 CP forward. Job is Sworn 6 of Palladium, category Brave Exvius, 9,000 power. He says, when Ignacio deals damage to your opponent or a forward, draw one card. He also has another ability, discard one fire card. Ignacio gains plus 2,000 power until the end of the turn. John, I'll let you go first. I guess we can just kind of roundtable these things.
Yeah, Chris, I think this guy's a good card. I've heard people immediately comparing him to the Azure Dragon and being a little upset that he doesn't have the EX Burst. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. I said that he has the extra upside of being able to draw more than one card. You know, he can deal with damage and also get a card on block. He can get it from fight mechanics. It's just this, like, Fire never, ever gets card draw like this. That's pretty neat. Also, he's a beater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a limited bomb. Curtis, what do you think of Ignacio?
He's definitely a great card, and like John said, he's able to give Fire access to a mechanic that usually they don't have at all. And I think it kind of opens up some fun decks with, like, maybe Earth as well for, like, Hecagon chairs to, you know, kill a card and then also draw at the same time. So I think it has pretty good potential.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys just said. I think the card's really good. Definitely, like I said, great and limited. I think he has a lot of constructive potential as well. I would not be surprised to see this guy, like you said, in Fire Earth decks. Really any sort of Fire X decks. Outside of just having to discard a Fire card, there's really no downside. Like, that's just kind of extra. The drawing the card is really what you care about. But, moving on to the next card. I'm glad I'm sitting down talking about this one. Next up, we have Ifrit. 3 CP Ifrit. First Ifrit, I believe, with no EX Burst. But this guy doesn't need it.
Wow.
I believe so. This guy doesn't need it. Category 3. He says, choose one forward. Deal it 8,000 damage. All the fire forwards you control gain plus 2,000 power till the end of the turn. John, lead us off, man.
Man, it's about time. This Ifrit deals a great amount of damage. As if 3 CP AK wasn't already enough. It wasn't already better than every other 3-cost fire summon. This bad boy also buffs all your forwards, so it gives you access to some of those plays like Titan used to give. It's like a 2-for-1, you know, hey, I'll block, buff my guy, and kill that guy. What a great card. Really, really huge piece of removal for fire decks right now.
Yep. And then paired with a Frida, it's going to make that deck even better than before. And with the new Terra as well, it's definitely a showstopper. It's probably, well, it is the best Ifrit summon.
Oh, by a mile, and I think it's kind of in a class of its own. This might be, I know Phoenix has kind of held the title and might still be the best fire summon. Boy, Ifrit is definitely challenging it for the title. This card is really, really good, and it makes combat with fire forwards an extremely just dangerous proposition. So I expect decks with fire forwards, you're going to be seeing 3 of this card, just hands down.
Yeah, it's like all upside.
It is. It's 100% upside. That's kind of a trend, honestly, with fire in this set. Most of these cards have nothing but upside, which is huge. Next up, it's a tough act to follow Ifrit, but we have the other fire summon in the set. It's a 4 CP. It's a Bilasa. I'm probably saying that wrong. He's a category 12 summon, EX Burst, and he says choose one forward, deal it 2,000 damage for each backup you control. John, go ahead.
So this guy's really good and limited. I'm finding him being actually kind of like my chief piece of removal if I'm going into like the damage packets. In constructed, I think maybe he's obviously easy to get to a lot of backups, but it kind of falls a little flat. The EX is nice, But I just think that, especially in Fire, you've got some crowded summon spaces these days for things that kind of synergize because of their name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think this card is going to get any play during like actual constructed, because like limited is fine, and you know, with the set being a set, you only have a few options to actually like kill something with removal. But like when you compare this with every other single card, with this card to like be technically on curve or like kind of make it for damage, you're gonna have to have 4 backups to kind of really clear most of the things. Otherwise, you're just gonna do like 6k damage if you have like 3 backups, which is kind of the most early to mid phase of each game. So I just don't think you're ever gonna really choose to play this card in a constructed deck anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree with all that. The only constructed home I think it finds is in Title, it being category 12, and that builds backups pretty fast. It could be a good piece of removal there, but I don't know. Even then, it's kind of dodgy.
Yeah, I don't know. They've got room there. There's a million great 12 summons. They've got
true.
So many great 12 summons.
It's true. So it's a hard maybe, but yeah, card's okay. Next up, I think this card's pretty decent. We have a 4CP Caius, category 13. Same job, Guardian of the Seers. He's a 4CP 9k, which is nice. When Caius enters the field, you may play 1 character, cost 3 or less from your hand onto the field. When Caius is put from the field into the break zone, select 1 character you control and put it into the break zone. John?
Yeah, I mean, the character is the keyword in both sentences here, right? Like, this guy can put backups, forwards, and monsters into play. He also can break backups, forwards, and monsters on his way out. It opens up synergies on both ends. It's not color restricted. The guy's above curve. I think we've seen both ends of the spectrum already. We've already seen people play Caius and get immediately punished by him getting removed and then them having to drop backup. But I've also seen Caius breaking Ron pairs and slamming 9 CP Shantotos into play and then playing 3 drops off that and just, you know, living his best life. So I think that there's, like, yeah, this card can get punished, but again, here's another huge upside fire card that is kind of like this aggressive efficiency that we're seeing in cards like this, and another one that we're going to go over in a little bit. And cards like this just open up so much space for deck construction. And I think that this guy's going to be in a lot of Fire X decks.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cards that's going to spark a lot of multicolor ideas, or, you know, it's going to be one of those fun decks that you kind of see pop up during the meta. I don't know exactly how good it's going to be during actual constructed, but I know for a fact that I have a couple of ideas that I want to be playing around with Caius. I think maybe Fire Water might be a good combination with them. Just because, like, most of the time when you're going to be putting a character you control into the break zone, most of the time it's a negative, but like with Water, there's like a lot of stuff that you don't mind getting rid of, like, you know, Vikings or Thornton.
Porum.
Yeah, Porum, or like even like backups like Larsa, the 6 CP where you break it, you draw a card. So there's plenty of fun things that you can cheat in or fun things to break. And maybe if you want to even try like a multicolored deck with Lightning, with a new Lightning backup in this set, you might be able to do some tricky and cheeky stuff with it. And even like simple stuff like play Caius and you maybe play that one monster, the Pot Cat, like get a card back, do something. Plus off of that, and then when he dies, basically just get rid of the Pot Cat and says if he really didn't really lose anything. So I think he's actually going to be a really fun card.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Card's really neat. Again, I think a good player is going to know how to navigate around ways that you can really just punish him. And I think a good player is going to know the right time to drop this guy to further that board state, and it'll be in a position where you don't care if he dies, because you almost in fact want him to die at the point you play him. So, card's really good.
And that's terrifying, really, like a 9k body that I want you to kill.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I think this card's really, really neat in that regard. Good card. Absolute good card.
And plus, if you play a Searcher, like one of the Searcher backups, you're, you know, mitigating the cost of him also, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think excellent card. Probably one of the better ones we've we've only talked about 4, but three of these 4 have been incredible cards.
It's the fire theme this set, man.
Very much so. And next up, we got one kind of dialing it back a little bit again. We got Gankanal. He's a 4 CP monster, category 13, Job Goblin. Put Gankanal into the break zone, choose 1 forward, deal it 8,000 damage. This is the first of the damage mechanic that we've seen. This is damage 5, which of course means once you hit the 5 damage threshold, this text becomes live. Put Gankan onto the break zone, choose one forward and deal it 10,000 damage. Then of course it has the reminder text of what damage 5 means, which I actually really like that they're doing that on some cards. John, go ahead. What do you think of Gankan?
So here's another guy that's probably not going to see play at all outside of limited. But we talked about this a little bit when we spoiled him on the cast. I think that this card is important in a limited environment to have like things like this, the 3 CP lightning monster. It's just cheap, low rarity removal that's paced, and those cards are really healthy for draft. I used it a ton in pre-release. Kind of proving that point there. It just is like felt like a really good piece of removal in pre-release. Definitely feels too expensive and constructed.
Mm-hmm. Curtis, what do you think?
Yeah, pretty much agree with everything John said. Like, for limited, obviously he's going to be good for removal purposes, but in constructed play, I don't see this ever being played. For one, I'm not really a fan of the art style. Looks like he just came straight from like Code Lyoko or something like that. But basically with the card itself, like I know there's a little bit of synergy with this in the set because Water has that one backup that lets you search for like a Goblin job card. But even then, that's like super jank territory, and I don't see this ever going to be played in like an actual real deck.
Yep. I agree. Not really much else to talk about here. Limited filler card. That's about it. Next up, we've got another Cloud. He's a 2 CP backup, Job Soldier. Was it the Rhythm? I know I always say that wrong. The Rhythm, N7. Good enough. And he's a backup. I believe this is the first Cloud backup we've seen. And when Cloud enters the field, you may pay 2 fire. When you do so, choose 1 dart forward and break it. And he has an S ability for S, 2 fire. I believe that is also 1 and tap.
Yes.
And for 2 fire, 1 and tap, choose up to 2 forwards. Divide 10,000 damage among them equally. John, what do you think?
I mean, this is a really, really cool 2 CP backup. Unfortunately, it's called Cloud. So I think that. I mean, it's going to be a lot like the other backups that have this name clash problem, like Lock, right? Where this is a cool option if you're playing red and you're not playing Cloud. Unfortunately, I just think that, red used to be a color you played just to splash into Cloud. Mm-hmm. So I think that the name is going to be the biggest struggle that this guy has, but the S ability is really neat to deal either 10k to 1 forward or to 5,000 damage. And 4 CP on a backup to break a dark forward is really niche, but if you do get to do it, that's a nice clean break for 4 CP and developing a backup, so that's obviously not bad at all. It's just really, really niche. Man, this card hates Sephiroth. But that's about it. Again, just, the name clash problem, but...
Yeah. Curtis, what do you think?
Yeah, I like the card for what it offers, and it's kind of cool. It gives a couple of answers to like some cards that give fire a really hard time to deal with, like like maybe an early Camel Knot or something like that. Like if they turn it fire, sure, a lot of your forwards are pretty beefy, so you're probably gonna be able to at least contest in battle, but most of the time you want to be able to clear it. So it kind of helps with stuff like that, and also it does give fire a pretty good option against Aerith, the forward. This special does allow it to kill it without having to worry about the damage mitigation on the card. However, like John said, it's called Cloud, and I think we all know that the 5 CP Cloud has been proven to be like a staple in fire, period. So I'm not even sure like if you really want to give that up to play this.
No, I agree with all of that. There's not really much else for that I can add to that. Cards. I think the card does have some niche uses. The name does just really, really hold it back. So, not a terrible card, but not great either. Very, very, very average. This is like textbook what fire has been for the last few sets, right? Like they just had to sneak that one last jab in there. Next up, we've actually got the last heroic. The other heroics obviously being Ignacio, Ifrit, and Caius. We have Zach. Boy, I love this card. It's a 4 CP 8k Zach, Job Soldier, Category 7. When Zach or a fire forward enter your field, choose one forward opponent controls and deal it 2,000 damage. When Zach or a Category 7 forward enter your field, choose one forward opponent controls and deal it 2,000 damage. John.
Again, this card, as if it needed to be any better, the fact that this triggers whenever a fire forward enters the field, as well as when Zach or a Category 7 forward enters the field. Of course, as soon as he comes in, he's dealing the 4K. You play any of those fun other 7 cards. We were just talking about how the Cloud is such a staple. You've got the new standard units this set. This card's awesome. I love this card, especially because I think I would have felt a lot different about this card. Like, I might have needed some convincing if we all hadn't just played in the Nationals tournament that we just played in. But the amount of Gaius Rattatan pings that were just, like, absolutely disgusting. The fact that this guy, like, makes it happen even more consistently. He's even cheaper to get into play. Like, this is definitely going to be seeing a lot of action.
I agree. Curtis, what do you think?
Yep, ditto on that. And it's going to be super good. I mean, the 2k damage when you play a forward is, well, a fire forward is going to be great, especially if you already have stuff like Emperor Sande on the board. That's going to be dealing 5 when he swings. I don't know if most of those mono fire decks will be playing more than one copy. I feel like this card might be just kind of like that extra tech at 1 in most lists, but I guess we'll see how it goes going on forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think this card, you kind of hit the nail on the head, Curtis. This card kind of takes on 2 forms. It's either a tech card in some lists or it's the build-around card in some lists. I like, obviously, the biggest buff is to the 2 CP Cloud. That 2 CP Cloud, I believe, puts 8k on something when it comes in because it puts 2k on something. It's a fire forward, it's a 7 forward, so that's another, so that's 6k. Sorry, it's going to put 6k on something when it comes into play. And then Zach with just Furion, you're putting 8k onto something. More than that, 2, 4, yeah, you're putting 8k. Like the math, like, you see what I'm saying? Like the math just starts getting out of control.
Yeah.
Just for showing up to the party.
Just for being there. It's like getting a goodie bag just for being invited. I think the card is really, really good, and I can't wait to see what kind of fun decks pop out with this guy just kind of at the centerpiece, especially if you have ways to protect him. Really, really neat card.
And plus, if he's on the board and you play any Phoenix, it's going to get massive value off of any of them.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, next up, we have our first legend. We have Sande, not to be confused with Emperor Sande. He's a 8 CP 9K Job Dark Lord Category 3. When Sande enters the field, choose up to 1 fire forward of cost 1 and up to 1 fire forward of cost 3 in your break zone. Play him onto the field. Easy peasy. And then he also has the damage mechanic, damage 5. When Sande enters the field, choose 1 fire forward of cost 2 in your break zone. Play it onto the field. John, what do you think?
This guy is so fun. We're talking about these explosive, aggressive cards that Opus 10 is full of, especially Fire, and here's one of them. I mean, we just wrapped up our weekly Octagon tournament here tonight, and this guy helped the Water Fire take first place. There's a Water Fire 9 deck. This guy was fond of slamming just VVs and Archangels, or VVs or Leases into play. And we've gone over the math on this card again when we revealed it. You're just plussing like a lot by getting all these characters. It's like such an enormous CP discount for playing all these bodies, and it's all in one. It's really neat that this card kind of opens up so many wide synergies for Fire, where Fire is always kind of like a card disadvantage for a combo element. Now we're finally starting to see some great like card advantage and some efficient cards for combos, and that's really cool.
Curtis, what do you think?
I have to see it in action to be fully convinced. Like, I like the card, and I think it's going to be like amazing down the line when more fire forwards are introduced into the game. Like, getting a VV is amazing and all that stuff as well, but when I see cards like this, I always want to try to get every single part of it to go off, and I don't really know how many fire forwards that cost 1 that are really in the game that you even want to play. I know that this set has that 1 CP fire guy that just blocks and that's it, and then there's like the shitty 1 CP standard units, but who knows, maybe down the line if they introduce more 1 CP fire forwards, like, it'll make me feel better about playing the card. But I personally probably won't touch this in a while. I feel like just having the other Sande is just more potent in most fireless right now, but that's just me.
Yeah, I see both sides of the coin. I'm very middle of the road on this card. I think it's really, really good. Now, if I'm not mistaken, because he is not the same Sande, so you could have them both on the board, correct?
Yeah, but I don't want to put both of them in a list, to be honest, though.
No, that's very fair. And because, like you said, Curtis, I think his toolbox is a little limited. But I think, like John said, I think the value that you get off of it, in the right deck, I think he just becomes a value machine. So I see the good, but I can see sometimes where like it just doesn't check out. I think this card is going to do nothing but get better over time. So I mean, right now I think it's a solid card. I think it just continues to get better. But the next few cards we're going to talk about are actually cards you can play off of Sande. So here we go. Next up, we have a standard unit. It's a 3 CP Soldier 3rd class. Standard unit, category 7 with 5k power with first strike. When Soldier 3rd class enters the field, you may search for one card named Soldier 3rd class and add it to your hand. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this card is pretty good with Zach, like we were just talking about. When this enters, it does the 4k on enter. First strike is a really powerful keyword in Fire.
Not much heavy.
Yeah, there's like 3 cards I think in Fire that get first strike without like you having to do something or pay for it. Besides the summons, obviously granting things first strike. But Fire is the king of ping, so first strike is very relevant. It scratches the right category itch, and it's cool that it has standard unit synergies. On the flip side of the coin, you don't get a lot of payoff for standard unit synergies in Fire. In fact, there's like almost none. And this guy is a 3 CP 5k, so like yeah, he searches for a card, puts it in your hand. But outside of other card advantage kind of helping you out, just putting a bunch of these guys on the board isn't quite enough. They do need a little help. But I think it's a cool card, and I think it's going to see some play in like decks that are really trying to focus on Zach's ability.
Curtis?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I don't really think there's any more analysis that could really be said about this card. I think John kind of said everything that this card has going for it. I think really you'll only see this card in like for funsy decks. It's not going to be like any showstopper by any means.
Yep, no, I agree 100%. We'll move right along to everyone's favorite card in Fire. This is the 1 CP, another card you can play off of Sande, oddly enough.
Yeah,
Onion Knight 3. He's a standard unit, category 3, with a blistering 2k power. If you control 4 or more backups, and if the backups you control are all different elements, Onion Knight gains plus 6,000 power. John, what do you think of this this marvel of modern Fire decks?
Next.
Curtis, what do you think of this marvel of modern Fire decks?
I mean, this card is interesting, but
sure.
Interesting does not mean good.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea. Like, the only deck that this could really ever go in is like Mughals, but why would you play this in a deck like Mughals? And then secondly, I guess you could play like a Sid deck that has a bunch of evokers, and that's like completely meme status, but it's really not good.
Yeah, I agree. We're just gonna move right along. There's not much happening here. Maybe one day, because this is actually the first of a cycle. There's a cycle of these in this set, so I don't know. Maybe one day. For now, there's not much happening. Next up, we have another 1-drop, another card that can be played off of Sande. It's Nagi. He's a warrior, category 11, which category is relevant. Not much happening here. Nagi can't attack, but Nagi also cannot become dull by your opponent's summons or abilities. He's a 1 CP 7k. John, what do you think?
He's so good at doing his job, dude. He just doesn't go anywhere. He just stands right there and does nothing. It's a cool card, right? Obviously super overcost, but he can't attack. Not really worth ever blanking this guy. He's probably just not attacking. He is certainly a good defensive card, and is a neat fire counter to some of those like ice and lightning move those guys out of the way strategies. And he turns on Volker.
Yes, he does.
Other than that, besides like some of those niche uses, I don't think that he sees much play.
Curtis?
Yeah, I don't really see him being played too often. I mean, he might be an interesting pick for like any kind of control, weird multicolored deck maybe that's trying to set up, like just play this and build backups behind it. But other than that, I don't think it's going to be played.
No, I agree. I think it's a neat card. It just kind of does what it does. This is a very much what you see is what you get kind of card. No tricks, no geometry. A 1 CP 7K that just sits there. All right, next up was our spoiler. It's a Geomancer. It's a 3 CP standard unit backup, Category 3. This is the return of Category 3 standard unit backups. And when Geomancer enters the field, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a fire card, add it to your hand. Tap, put Geomancer into the break zone, choose one forward, and deal it 2,000 damage. John, what do you think?
I like this card. I was a little bit higher on it than our post when we first revealed it, and I think that we've all gotten even higher on it since then. This is just a good card. We've been talking a little bit about how Fire normally has that card disadvantage and struggles to find efficient, like, developing plays, and I think that this Geomancer is excellent at developing your board while not hemorrhaging cards from your hand. So I think this card is going to see a lot of play in Fire decks.
Curtis?
I think it's a really good card, especially if you're playing mono fire. Especially, it's just a really good way to curve into backups and just get advantage off of it. Super solid.
Yep, yeah, y'all hit it right on the head. The card advantage is again. This is something that Fire's never really had. It does, and then it has just kind of that small ping effect, which sometimes is just enough. It's essentially it's just an evoker on steroids, which is nice, and I think Fire needs stuff like that.
Excellent bridge play.
Yes, indeed.
The finest.
Yeah.
Indeed. Next up, we have a new Furion. He's a 3 CP 7K Job Warrior. If you control 3 or more fire backups, Furion gains haste. If you control 5 or more fire backups, Furion gains plus 2,000 power and first strike. John.
So this is a cool card. The problem is I think that like Fire right now does this thing where it's like cycling its backups a lot, if not just like blowing them all up and YOLOing. So you like walk this weird line, this like counter synergy between wanting to use your backups for other things and having Furion be his best. I think that the 2 CP Furion just does a potentially crazy amount of damage for what he costs, and it's hard finding a reason to take him out. But this card's pretty cool. Haste on 3 backups is nothing to scoff at. That's pretty easy to do. But again, I don't think personally I'm playing this over the 2 CP Furion.
Curtis, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the 2 CP Furion is just a better card to play over this. I don't really see any reason to include this in any of your decks. I mean, even off of all the Phoenix summons and stuff like that, you're getting most of your value off of the 2 CP anyways, and especially with like the new Zac as well. Like the 2 CP Furion is just better, plain and simple.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think this card would otherwise be pretty playable if it had a different name. But again, I think haste is fine. It's just it's a fine card. I think that's just the best way to put it. But it being named Furion really keeps it from being anything that people are probably going to look at more than once. Just because the 2 CP, like you guys have both said, it's just such a staple card. It just does an awful lot for so little. So. All right, next up we have another Type 0 backup. We have Mitsuki. She's a 4 CP Agito Cadet. When a forward opponent controls is put from the field into the break zone, activate Mitsuki. She has tap, choose one forward opponent controls, deal it 1,000 damage. John.
This is actually a really cool card. This is the kind of card that like most people won't play, and somebody will be like all about. Like they'll just be like obsessed with playing this card and making it work. It has a lot of cool synergies with like pinging, it keeps reactivating itself, you tap and it doesn't break, keeps dealing 1,000 damage. My problem with this card is it costs 4. This card could cost 3 and still probably wouldn't see a whole ton of play. because it is like that weird kind of niche and it's only for those like weird combo things. But I don't know, it's like it's got one of those neat, unique effects where it keeps reactivating itself, so somebody might be able to find a cool combo for this in the future. I don't think it's going to weasel its way into many constructed lists, though. I don't think Fire can afford 4 CP cards that don't do much when they come into play.
Yeah, I agree. Curtis?
Same. This card is pretty expensive. When you play it, you're most likely not really going to get any value off of it off the bat. And then even then, you're going to have to always make sure that you're always going to be killing something with whatever you're doing. So I don't really see it being played anytime soon, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you're playing a backup that costs 4, it needs to have a way to essentially make it cost 2, or it needs to like do something immediately. Like it needs to kill something, it needs to activate everything that you control, it needs to draw you a card, it needs to draw you 2 cards, make you discard 1, it needs to let you search for something. See what I'm saying? Or it just, if you're paying 4 for something, it needs to do something more, and this just isn't that. I mean, I think it's cool. I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, I think if it is like maybe 2K, it would be kind of worth it, but
Sure.
1K is kind of small.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next up, we have next cards in the next 2 cards actually are part of this cycle of Mughals we started seeing last set. First up, we're going to be on class first Mughal. Jeez, he's a type 0 Mughal. For 1 in tap, choose 1 fire forward you control, gains 1,000 power till the end of the turn. I believe we saw this in Earth, Wind, and Water last set.
Ice, I want to say.
Was it Ice? Okay, because I know because we saw him, I believe, in the colors as the dual color Mughals as well.
Yeah, so lightning. There was a lightning Mughal that made 1 CP.
Okay, gotcha. So it was lightning.
And there was an ice Mughal that made 1 CP, and an earth Mughal that made lightning CP.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So John, what do you think of this one?
It's just the worst selfie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is the Mughal to focus on. It's probably not going to see much play.
Yep. Curtis?
Yeah, I mean, it's just adding to the Mughal pool, but I think Fire is notorious for having strong forwards anyway, so I don't even see the use or the reason to play this card for 1, or like to have it other than it being another Mughal. I mean, you got cards like Lice and all those other guys that just continually boost your guys, so it's never really going to have any use.
Yep, and why be first when you can be second? And that's the next card, the Class Second Mughal. Another Type 0 card. Now, if Class Mughal is on the field, Class Second Mughal can produce Ice CP. So we're also getting the second round of this cycle of dual lands, essentially. And I think having 1 for Fire Ice, yeah, this is one people were clamoring for last set, and we finally got it. John, what do you think?
Are you guys ready to see something you can't unsee?
Oh, I am.
Alright, this Mughal is probably one of the worst examples of bad/lazy/ reused assets or art in this game. That boy has part of another Mughal's sword on his cheek that is cropped onto his face. Look on the right side, that is the tip of a sword from another Mughal in the same piece of art.
It looks like the tip of the sword from the Mughal that is right next to him.
It is. It's literally, you could look up the art of these Mughals. And
yeah, so I'm going back and forth, and yeah, that is literally...
It's literally the guy right next to him.
Yeah, it is. Class first Mughal, that's Class Second Mughal, and Class first Mughal swords in his face.
Did you guys know this is our first linking art card?
Boy.
Where they literally are part of each other? Yeah, how bad is that, man? They couldn't even, like, have somebody just kind of, like, shit, I could Photoshop that off the Mughal. Like, something.
Clean that up for a second.
Something? Yeah, I told you, you can't, and now every time I look at this card, that's all I see.
Well, now that's all I'm gonna see.
Like, it's just a sword, like, clipped at, like, it totally shatters the immersion that this is, like, just his card. It's like, oh, this is cut out from... It's like a kid was cutting out a picture of a celebrity from a magazine. Just there's, like, some of the words are still over it. It's like, no, that's fine, though. This is just, like, you know, hanging up as a poster in their room. Like, it's got a coffee stain on it. Like, come on, it's ruined. We need to fix it. But anyway, besides this egregious error, this card is really, really good. This lets you do silly things like just like Laswell shenanigans and mono fire. Obviously, I think is everybody's go-to fun example. But the easiest thing here is just that this smooths out all of those fire ice decks. I mean, fire ice is a popular element combination. This just turns on all your colors right away, feels great. Ice is in like a big Mughal color, so any Mughal that ever does anything with ice is a big deal, or potentially a big deal, and contributes towards that deck. I think that this is just going to see a lot of play.
Curtis, what do you think?
I think it's super solid. It's fixes a lot of problems I feel like Fire Ice sometimes have. From the experience of me playing the deck and then also watching other people play it, a lot of times, and a lot of lists, I believe, don't really play too many 2CP ice backups. Like, they rely on the ice CP coming from, like, the Banana Sid, or maybe the Setzer backup if they are playing it, but that's kind of it. The rest of the backup are fire. And sometimes that clogs, especially during the mid-late to late game when you're playing, like, Nail to, like, burst your own backups to kill guys. Usually you're killing your own Banana Sids to play another one, but if you don't draw into another one, you don't have the ice CP. So I think this kind of helps solve the problem. But at the same time, if you cut out some fire backups in a fire ice list, like sometimes you're cutting out the other 6 options. So this might be like a splash in that deck. But I think it's going to open a lot of fun deck building possibilities if you don't want to go pure Final Fantasy VI Fire Ice.
Yeah, I agree. I think it cleans up that deck. I think where it really shines is in like the other ice Final Fantasy or the other Fire Ice decks, like WAF variants or like Final Fantasy VIII lines or lists that don't really run a lot of backups. One backup giving you access to both your colors really clean those up, because you're probably playing those decks. Maybe not so much the WAF one anymore, but at least the Final Fantasy VIII one. You're probably playing that off of 2 backups. And if one of them can produce both your colors, you're going to be in a much better spot than you would be otherwise. Yeah, solid card. All of these dual land Mughals are all, I mean, they're all 5 out of 5. They're all stupid good cards.
Art too, just like art is out of the park on this card.
Oh, Jesus, I'm no stranger to sarcasm. But speaking of art being knocked out of the park, 4 of these last 5, and we're going to start with one of them, are cards that are kind of really cards in the pushed archetype in Opus 10. And of course, I'm talking about World of Final Fantasy, or WAF. Leading that charge, we have another Lon. He's a 2 CP 5K job Mirage Keeper as usual. If you control a card named Rain, Lon gains plus 2,000 power and first strike. When Lon enters the field, choose one monster that is also a forward. They're literally saying choose Zapped, Frit, Orb of Blizz. And until the end of the turn, it gains 5,000 power and Brave. John, go on ahead.
Okay, so first of all, yeah, those 3 are obvious, but he also turns on any monster who has become a forward. So it does have synergy with a lot of monsters. But we're not looking at any of those monsters. Let's look at those World of Final Fantasy monsters.
Correct.
This guy pops off in the World of Final Fantasy deck. We're about to see a common theme. These cards just do so much for each other that they are screaming to play them together. And for once, I think every once in a while, a lot of those tribes are just not worth it. But this time, this is absolutely worth it. All of these cards are full art. They knew what they were doing. They're going to be breaking a lot of people's wallets. But yeah, more about the card specifically this long, really good. Obviously, you're always going to have the Rain out, whether you're playing the free forward, you're playing the backup to help turn this on, whatever spice you choose. I think most people are going with the forward. He gets the 2,000 power at first strike. When he enters the field, the other guys get huge. Probably everybody's getting haste. And this guy ends up being like a 2 CP 9K that checks all the boxes, that has haste and first strike. And again, we were talking about how first strike is kind of that rare keyword that fire doesn't get a lot of access to. And when all of your guys are dealing, whatever 4,000 damage every time they attack, that first strike's pretty relevant. So I think that this card is an absolute rock star. We talk about it all the time. Anything that's 2 CP 5K and has that much text is usually a pretty good card.
Yeah, I agree. Curtis, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this card is super good, and it's a great baby Phoenix target. Even without Rain, you're going to be able to kill almost every 7K out there on curve. But, I don't really have too much experience with the WAF decks, but from what I hear, it's good. And I do feel like this is probably the land you want to play over the other lands in the game, but I guess we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I can actually say that firsthand because I think just the deck in general, any of the variants, playing efficient bodies is what it's all about for as cheap as possible. And I think this line, like John said, checks a lot of boxes. And we'll talk more about it as we get to the other cards. The deck is extremely explosive. If you don't play against it absolutely correct, you're on a 2-turn clock once it's set up. It's that explosive, and it innately will have built-in room, but we'll get to that. I think the card is excellent, and it's just a critical piece, and the fact that it's only coming in at rare is huge.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to break up the action here. We're going to talk about a 5 CP Agito Cadet.
We won't be here for long.
Yes, indeed. Text is simple. He's a 5 CP 9K. Damage 2, Rid gains Brave. Damage 5, Rid gains plus 2,000 power. John, go ahead.
Raid's limited, busted, right? He's got like 9K, just gets bigger, has Brave, all that cool stuff. Otherwise, he's super vanilla. I think guys who are big for the sake of being big is Fire doesn't really want for those. I think Fire's doing fine as is with 9Ks, especially 5 drops these days. This guy doesn't really have much of a home. I think this guy's just a nice high-end and limited.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Curtis?
Yeah, this is just a tutorial card, basically. It's just
100%.
Learn how this damage mechanic works, the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's about it. I could maybe see you playing him in a Type 0 deck, but the fact that he's an Agito Cadet just really destroys any synergy that you're looking for. Tutorial card at its finest. Now back to the good stuff. So we have another. This is another WAF card. We got Wine Drunk at 1 p.m. Mother. It's a loose. Or
loose,
Lucy.
All right.
She's a 2 CP backup. World of Final Fantasy. Job is Mother. Danzig, sing it to me. So the cost required to play loose onto the field is reduced by 1 for each card named Lon or card named Rain you control. She has an ability to tap, choose 1 card named Lon or 1 card named Rain you control. It gains Brave till the end of the turn. John, I'm going to interject. I'm going to cut line on this one because this was the card that I lost the game tonight. My first game tonight because I left it, I tapped it instead of giving my Lon Brave so I wouldn't lose on the next turn. I think this card is really, really good. It's good at any time. Like you can play it on turn 1 and not feel bad, but anytime you can play it for 1 or 0, it feels even better. If you're playing this card is a critical piece of the WAF decks. Otherwise, I don't really think you're playing it. John, what do you think?
This card definitely is just for the WAF decks. I think people have been talking about this card being just like, this is a fine vanilla 2CP play.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's cool to get the discount, and of course the discount's good, but yeah, this card is just a cheap way to start turning on
everything
all
in the
WAF synergy. And then the common theme you'll see here is that turning on this synergy is cheap and is efficient, and that's what's so good about it.
Yep. Curtis, what do you think?
Well, the art's super good. I do appreciate that.
Very much so.
And it's a cheap way to ramp up the deck for a already fast deck. And the cool thing is this card can be 0, correct?
Yes, it sure can.
Nope, that's all I have to say. It's a good card.
Yeah, pretty much. And I said my piece at the top. Card's good. Next up, speaking of good cards, we have the other legendary. And boy, howdy, is it a cheap, opens up the garage, pulls the tarp off, just hops in with Lon and this 2-seater ass beater, and just goes to town. And I'm talking about a 5 CP 8K Rain, Job Mirage Keeper, World of Final Fantasy. She's got a lot of text, so buckle up. So the cost required to play Rain onto the field is reduced by 1 for each category WAF character you control. The category WAF forwards other than Rain you control gain haste. When a category WAF forward you control attacks, choose 1 forward opponent controls and deal it 4,000 damage. Holy shit. John, what do you think?
Wow. So I think every time I saw this card played tonight, you played it for free.
I played it for free every time I played.
It is very easy to play this card for free. And I think that's crazy because even at 1 or 2 CP, this card's nuts. So this card, besides just getting cheaper, it makes every other World of Final Fantasy forward you have gain haste. And it's like, a lot of times when cards have a tribal synergy like this, it's like, man, if the cards didn't have that line, they wouldn't be worth it. But the funny thing is, like, pretty much all of the other World of Final Fantasy cards, besides the ones that are giving everybody these crazy abilities, just say, like, if you have a bunch of World of Final Fantasy cards, they just get better. So it's like, I mean, these cards are, like, even when they're missing the Rain and the Lawn, like, they're holding down the fort until these guys show up. And once they arrive, every single person is batting, like 3 times higher than they should be. You know, like, it's just, it's really insane what this card enables. Like the fast aggression. I mean, I saw you just like party attack to nuke something for 8k, oh no, 9k, because you used Pelennor, which is like, I mean, like, this deck is just tossing damage around like just left and right. It's really crazy to watch. This card is really, really good.
Curtis, what do you think?
In the words of Alejandro, it's Muy Segoy Fire Cardo. But that's
Muy Segoy for sure.
Yeah. And so just to kind of follow up on all of that, yes, the card is nuts because obviously there's so many different flavors to play WAF decks. You have Fire Ice, you have Fire Earth, you have Mono. The fact that in most of these decks, the fact that in most of these decks, she is going to cost you 1 or 0, and she enables so much. And there is not a time tonight that I played her for more than 0, because it's so easy to build WAF backups, right? Because you have Luce, you have Pelennor, you have Sigvardus. I really legitimately think you're playing Brandelis just to build your backup line. You have Tama, you have a category searcher that now is going to see the light of day. Then we have the next card we're going to talk about. You literally ramp up, you play this card for free. Now you tap your backups to play your Lons, your Fritz, your Winds, a card from Opus 4 that was pretty much useless until now. And you're coming across the board for 3 damage, and you're probably killing something that's in the way. You're coming into okay, not just that. With that loadout, you're playing Rain for free. You're playing Frit. You go play Frit or Wind first, one of the 2. Then you're going to play Lon, who's going to buff the Frit. Then Lon's going to be a 7k first strike, who's going to put 4,000 on something when it attacks. So you're not stepping in front of that guy unless you want to lose something. Then you're going to turn the Frit sideways, and he's going to finish off whatever Lon started to hit. Are you going to step in front of this 2 CP 9k that's going to get the best fucking fire summon in the set out of your deck for you? No. And then you're going to get hit with a 2 CP 10k Brave that's going to put 4k onto something else. That's literally every turn of that deck, as long as she's on the board. And the best part is, the next card is insane. And then you play cards like Luminous Puma to just, I'll play Puma, I'll get her back, play her for free. Whatever, she's back. Do something about it.
Oh, she's back. Oh, she's back.
Yeah, exactly. So card is nuts. Absolutely nuts. And to just kind of complete the fire review, the fire set review, we are finishing with another World of Final Fantasy card. It's WAF Dad himself. It's a 3 CP father backup. So we got Mom, we got Dad, and Dad's coming with an EX burst. So he says, when Rorik enters the field, choose one card named Lon or card named Rain from your break zone and add it to your hand. Christ on a cracker. We didn't need this card, but they got it. And being able to recycle your Lons, being able to really recycle your Rains that you're over that. Because also too, you can have 4 WAF backups. You play this, you pitch the Rain to play it, put the Rain into play, and then you start playing the other dudes again. Like, it's just bananas. This card is that final piece.
Dude, I want to go back and listen to wherever we were talking about like all the other pieces. We don't know what the dad does, but as long as he does like X, Y, or Z, like it'll be fine. Things are gonna be okay. And then we see this card and it's like, I don't know what I could have asked for. It was better than this, dude. Like,
yeah, there's nothing.
Perfect.
There's nothing else.
Like, this is 10 times better than searching my deck for them.
Yes.
Like, you get from the break zone, puts them in my hand. This is excellent.
Yeah, because now you don't care if Rain gets hit with Diabolos or not. You're like, okay, fine. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! I'm in
You're
trouble
gonna have to play
now.
5 of them.
Yeah. Oh no! I'm in trouble now. Yeah, Curtis, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this card is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's all I have to say. I mean, you guys said everything to say about it.
It also
Sorry,
looks,
we're gonna switch order for the next element. So
well, it looks just stunningly like Lord Byron. That's right. He is Lord Byron, aka Waff Dad. Card's excellent. So that's our review for Fire, guys. Overall, I think Fire has seen. It's probably the best it's ever been, and it was coming that way coming into Opus 10. And obviously, Fire has its own pushed archetype with World of Final Fantasy. All the heroics are excellent. All the legends are excellent. It has a nice just mix of commons and rares. Like this, I might go as far as saying this, in all of Final Fantasy trading card game, this might be the strongest showing from Fire in a set just on its own merits.
Here's a question to you, Chris. Before Opus, I think Opus 7 released, Wind was pretty shitty. And with the release of like Chelenka and Yuri and all that stuff, Mono Wind basically became like the top tier deck that we all know of. Do you feel like this set is the coming of Fire to that point?
Yes, I think not. I think the old Mono Fire deck that we saw, I'm not necessarily just like, because you saw a lot of Wind and Wind Water and Wind Earth, like it just kind of really came into its own. I do think that. I think Fire and predominantly Fire X decks just become commonplace now. I think the WAF deck is something that you are going to see a lot of, and Fire just kind of introduced a lot of this. I mean, it's a lot of heavy, just really efficient CP usage, which is very, very weird, and just aggression. The WAF package is nuts. Sande goes wide. Caius puts free stuff into play. Zach just kills things. Ifrit kills something and makes the boys huge. Like, it just has everything going for it right now.
Yeah, and I feel like with just the introduction of Terra,
yes,
Fire obviously
Terra was
became so much
first
better.
Line.
And then, Mono Fire was the joke of everybody, It's like Mono Fire is like the worst deck if you ever wanted to play competitively. But I think with just the introduction of Terra, made that deck like a top tier pick. And then I think with the new 3CP Ifrit in the set, I think that deck gets so much better. And I do feel with you exactly that this is probably the set that makes Fire one of the top mainstays, maybe, for the next Opuses to come.
Yep. John, any final thoughts on Fire before we wrap up this review?
No, I mean, Fire's here. I think that I have said the exact phrase on the cast before that. We're all going to make fun of Fire until somebody tries it and they make it work. And then we realize, oh, it works now. And I think that happened, that European list. Like, God, that list influenced our nationals in the craziest way. I would never have seen something like that coming. And I think that, now that Fire is here and it's like good and it's popular, I think that people are just going to experiment with so many of these new cards. We're not just going to see the WAF deck. I think we're going to see basically like all of these Fire synergies that we kind of could have been seeing this whole time that finally get to shine.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to say this, man. Tonight when I cast Rain for 0, it was like the Elmo meme where he's got like the fire burning behind him and his hands up. That's literally what it felt like every single time. That 5 CP card cost me nothing. John, it cost me nothing.
Nothing, Chris.
Nothing. But it gave me
no
nothing.
money down.
No money down. Try before you buy. But no, Fire looks great. And guys, thank you for joining us for our Fire review. Let us know what you think of Fire overall in this set down in the comments below. And, as always, thank you for watching our content. Up next will be our Ice review. So you want to check that out when it's out.